Hello, and welcome to the 2023 Chicago Cubs season preview and how it relates to the card world. The Cubs finished last season 74 and 88. That was a little better than I expected, so I went and looked at how their end of the year went, and they finished 8-2 in their last 10 games. So right up until that last 2 weeks, they were 66 and 86. So that 74 and 88 is a little misleading. They were a lot worse than that throughout the year. And they made some offseason additions that makes them at least interesting going into this year. A lot of one-year prove-it contracts. Cody Bellinger at the top of the list. He was sought after. A lot of teams thought they could fix him. He's not that far removed from an MVP season, as well as two of the bigger years for a guy his age. Jameson Taillon came in. He signed a 4-year, $68 million deal. Pretty good deal. Pretty sizable deal, and more than I would have expected, but we'll get a little bit more into him. They brought in Brad Boxberger for the bullpen. Dansby Swanson signed a big deal. Tucker Barnhart for catching depth. Eric Hosmer at first base. Trey Mancini at first base. I'll get into both of them, but I wish they would just let Matt Mervis come up. Michael Fulmer, more bullpen depth. Edwin Rios for some infield depth. He can kind of play corner spots, hit the outfield if he needs to. And they made a trade with the Rays and brought in Miles Mastrobuoni. He's currently playing for Team Italy in the WBC, but I do like his future outlook. Major losses from last season. Number one is easily Wilson Contreras. He signed with the Cardinals, which is a dagger to Cubs fans, I'm sure. But what's really surprising to me is that last season at the trade deadline, the Cubs didn't move him. He has, good offensive output from the catcher spot, but I know a lot of teams, Guardians specifically, were a little worried about his defensive abilities. And that's kind of the holdup and why they probably didn't trade him, is they weren't getting enough back from teams. But I still think from the Cubs' standpoint, you got to find a deal for him. Anything. If you could bring in a number 4, number 5 future starter, anything 1-for-1, like just stunning that they didn't do anything. But the Cardinals signed him now, and the Cubs can watch him from a little too close. They also lost Wade Miley and Steven Brault, both kind of innings eaters at the back end of the starting rotation. I put this guy on here, Clint Frazier. He didn't do much with the Cubs. He was dealing with more injuries again, so we'll see if he can still bounce back. Andrelton Simmons is gone, defensive first, shortstop. Jason Hayward, they released him from his contract, and Hayward actually signed on with the Dodgers. They lost Alec Mills and Franmil Reyes, who they brought in midseason anyway. Wasn't a major loss, but still some of the guys that dropped off free agency. The Cubs' storylines going into this season are, prove-it contracts. I mentioned Bellinger, Hosmer. What can he do? Trey Mancini's on a 2-year deal, but an opt-out after 1 year, so he's going to try and bring his career back to life. The bullpen got some nice additions to an already strong bullpen, in my opinion, or strong bullpen going into this year. And then the starting rotation looks okay. I would say like all 5 are okay. And then, if this team is in the NL Central, they're already competing with the Brewers and Cardinals, which are tough. But then they have the Pirates and the Reds. And if you told me who's going to finish higher, Cubs, Pirates, Reds, it's Cubs by a long shot. And I think that they can win a lot of games versus those two teams and put themselves in a position for the last wild card spot. I'm not saying they will, but I see a path for them to make the playoffs relatively easily. And then there's still reports that they're looking for free agents. I expect them to bring in a lefty in the bullpen, and they may still sign, who knows? I mean, Jerks and Profar's out there. Wouldn't surprise me if they made like a April 1st or April 15th signing of someone like Profar. We'll get into the starting rotation first with Marcus Stroman. He signed a 3-year, $71 million contract entering the 2022 season, so he's got 2 years left on this year and next. This is his age 32 season. He's been around for a long time, 9 years in the league. His rookie's in 2014 Topps update. Came into the league at 23 years old. And his rookie season, he went 11-6. And I know myself and others bought into the hype at the time, and we kind of expected him to be this, really consistent number 2 pitcher who could strike people out, who could give you length, who could pitch 200-plus innings, which he's done twice in his career, so I don't want to discount him. But that rookie season in 2014 was probably his best and most exciting season. He has pitched 200 innings. In 2016 and 2017, he was very good with the Blue Jays. And then his 2021 with the Mets was very good also. So he's kind of inconsistent while also being consistent, right around a 3.5 ERA. He's probably going to win 12 games this year. I could see a pretty good season out of Stroman, but what worries me as far as him being their number one is if you go into a playoff series, 3-game series, 5-game series, 7-game, whatever it is, if Marcus Stroman is your game one starter, I just don't see him setting the tone or see him dominating a game where we could get excited about the Cubs potentially winning a playoff series. So I think if this Cubs team wants to compete in 2024, they need to sign a real frontline starter. I think Stroman is a solid 2.5, but not an ace. He's a good pitcher. I want to watch him pitch, but I think they need one more really big arm before they start competing. Number 2 on their rotation is Jameson Taillon. They just brought him in. I said 4 years, $68 million. That was more than I expected. This is his age 31 season, and until this point, he had only made $17 million in career earnings, and 6.5 of that was his signing bonus. So it's a huge payday for Taillon. I'm happy for him. I've always been a big fan of him when he was drafted by Pittsburgh and played in Pittsburgh. Really thought he was going to break out at some point and just be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. What I am excited about him going into this year, one, he's out of New York. I'm not saying that as a negative towards New York, but it's just pressure released off of a player. It's been proven before. If you look at Sonny Gray, he was one that just really struggled in New York. And I can't say it's all just because he's playing in New York and the fans and everything else, but it is something that weighs on players. So Taillon out of New York, I'm excited about. He's bringing in a new pitch this year. It's a slider, which is, everyone's trying out things, new pitches, whatever, but it's really exciting because Taillon is already what I call a 4-quadrant pitcher. What that means is he can go up and away, up and in, low and away, and low and in. He already knows how to hit all 4 quadrants of the strike zone. So if he brings in a slider and maybe he can start hitting that outside corner or just off the plate making players swing and miss, he could add more strikeouts to his game, which is his big default. If he struck more people out, I think we'd be a lot more excited about him. I would call him a mild breakout potential. He's 31, so we're not going to get too excited, but he's in the Cubs market, which maybe they latch onto him as a new fan favorite. He has a career 8.1 K per 9, so that's what I'm saying. If this year the slider works and he continues to pitch well, we could see that become a K per inning or maybe like a 9.5 or almost 10 K per 9. That'd be exciting. I'd be really, really interested to see that. He has a low walk rate, which is one of my favorite things to see as a pitcher. The Cubs defense should be okay. I don't think they're going to cost him any games or cost him a lot of runs. They might not get to those extreme range balls, but we'll see. If you're looking for Taillon, kind of like I am, I did a little research on his cards. 2016 Topps update. He's obviously pitched as a Pirate, but that would probably be my target. I don't want to say, hey, invest in a 31-year-old pitcher, but he just has the makings of this guy's been average. All of a sudden, he goes 15-5 and he strikes out, we'll call it 180 batters, which would probably be top 10 in the NL, I would guess, maybe top 15. Maybe his cards see a little bump, and his floor seems relatively low. Relatively high. He's been a very consistent pitcher his entire career. So as long as we avoid injuries with Taillon, I could see a season where he is worth more at the end of the season than he is now. Justin Steele has probably the biggest strikeout potential on this staff. Steele has a weird kind of rookie path. He had a rookie, or his first Bowman was in 2014 Bowman draft, and then his rookie logo card is in 2023 Series 1. But in addition to that 2014 Bowman draft first Bowman, he had a 2015 Bowman that has the first logo also. So thanks, Topps. Missed it on that one. And why I say he has kind of a weird path is he has the rookie logo in 2023 Topps Series 1. But before this season, he already had 176 major league innings. So there were points that I would have expected him to be in 2022 update or even 2022 Series 2, but they just kept pushing him back, and we get his first rookie in 2023. In 2021, he was a reliever, and he converted to a starter in 2022. He pitched 119 innings, which is a good sign. That means the transition worked. It wasn't too much of a workload. He was able to consistently pitch and stay on the field. I would like to see him push towards about 140 to 160 innings this year. He had more than a K per 9 when he transitioned to a starter, so that's a good sign. If he keeps that going, I think he'll be an exciting pitcher to watch for the Cubs. 3.18 ERA. I don't put a lot of stake into ERA, but what I did see is his FIP, field independent pitching, was 3.2. So that means that ERA seems sustainable. FIP is a stat that doesn't normalize as fast as we might like. So this could go up still. His ERA could still rise in 2023. But he has the products and the makings of a pitcher who could be a great number 3, 140, 160 innings, and strike out more than a K per 9. Sign me up. The number one worrisome thing about Steele, though, is that he's only a 2-pitch pitcher. He has a really good fastball, slider. He uses the curve a little and a changeup, but he throws that changeup maybe 2 times an outing. His pitch mix on Fangraphs was 2% on the changeup, so he's throwing it once or twice a game. I would love to see him lean into that and work on it. That fastball sits 92, 93 with a slider around the same, and I think when you transition from bullpen to starter, that velocity is always going to be the first thing to go because you're not used to throwing that many innings or that many pitches per outing. So I think with some sustained starting, he could this year see that fastball rise up a little bit again. So he could sit 94, 95. He averaged less than 5 innings to start last season. So if we can get him above 5 and bring the walks down, Justin Steele's a guy to be mildly excited about. They brought back Drew Smyly this year. This is his 5th team in 5 years, so the fact that he re-signed with the Cubs is kind of a good sign. That means the Cubs and Smyly were happy to be there. He showed some length for them. He's a guy who can eat some innings. He's entering his age 34 season, so you have to go all the way back to 2012 for his rookies. But on and off the injured list most of his career, so it's hard to stay consistent. It's hard to stick with the team if you're not out there throwing innings. I'm excited for Smyly to be a number 4 and hopefully pitch an entire season. I say the word exciting, but I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him to be there, hopefully stay healthy, and just have a rotation spot and be a good pitcher. He found a little consistency the last 2 seasons. He spent some time with the Giants, who seem to be reclamation station for pitchers. If you look at Alex Wood, they fixed Kevin Gossman. They have been an absolute pitching powerhouse. I mean, look at Anthony DeSclafani, even coming over from Cincinnati to San Francisco. He's been very good out there. So Smyly may have worked on some things out there, and then he's putting them into action with the Cubs. He's a serviceable number 4, healthy season, and I don't hate the Cubs, to surprise people with him. Adrian Sampson is probably sitting in the number 5 spot. He's a 2019 rookie as a Ranger. This is his age 31 season. He's a serviceable number 5. I'm not rushing on to buy his cards. He had 20 starts last season and pitched over 100 innings, so that's a good sign. I do like to see anyone who could put up some length, some volume. It means their health is not a huge concern. With pitchers, it's always a concern, but a guy who can stay on the field and pitch is a great sign. He had a 3.11 ERA, and I just said we don't put a lot of stock in ERA, so I looked at his FIP, and FIP projected him to be about a half a run higher per game. So that's where that FIP comes in and tells us, hey, ERA was fine, but the balls were getting hit hard. The defense played some factors into that ERA staying low. So if he's a 3.65, 3.85 ERA guy, he's a fine number 5 and can throw some innings. I don't think he makes 31 starts. Probably makes 15 to 20, and hopefully Hayden Wesneski or Keegan Thompson make some starts this year. But Sampson doesn't, spark joy. 6.3 K per 9. Hate that. He does get a lot of weak contact, but if you're not striking people out, you're always one dink dunk away from a rally, just destroying your outing. So I just feel like we could see him fall out of the rotation eventually, especially if they really like what Wesneski does the remaining of this spring training. Keegan Thompson is sitting at the number 6. I'm going to call him 6, but I'd really call him like 5.2. He's probably right behind Sampson and could actually make the rotation for the Cubs over Sampson. He's a 2021 Topps Update rookie. 2021 Topps Update is kind of weak. A lot of players we projected to play very well and hold that 2021 rookie class haven't done it. If you look at Akil Baddoo, Jonathan India, Jared Kelenic, Andrew Vaughn, those are kind of our targets in 2021 update, or at least were in 2021. So Keegan Thompson cards are probably sitting in penny boxes out there, dime boxes. You could probably pick him up for penny stocks. Is entering his age 28 season. He had 17 starts, but pitched in 29 games last year. So that's what I'm saying. Him and Sampson probably eat up 10 starts throughout the year as spot starts, injury replacements, whatever it might be. He had just under a K per 9, but why he's probably right behind Sampson is Thompson projects as a better reliever than Sampson. So I look at the Guardians and like Aaron Savali. Savali's probably not a great bullpen pitcher, and why he sits in that number 5 hole. I think if you were to put a gun to the head of the the Cubs GM or Cubs manager be like, why do you have Thompson behind Sampson? It's because Thompson probably projects better as a reliever. So I think he will relieve more. Probably the most exciting pitcher in the Cubs system or Cubs rotation battle is Hayden Wesneski. He's entering his age 25 season. He came over from the Yankees. So if you're looking for Wesneski cards, it's 2019 Bowman draft. He was actually a 6th round draft pick. So the fact that cards were produced of him is actually kind of a cool thing because, we usually top out right around 5th rounders for Bowman draft. So the fact that he made Bowman draft is awesome. He only has base. He didn't make the auto checklist. He could definitely be the number 5 starter. I don't know how excited the Cubs are about him. I know the fans are, clamoring for someone with some upside, which this rotation does lack a little bit. I think we know where most of them are going to project. But Wesneski has kind of an unknown factor about him, so that's why they're excited. He could make the number 5 starter. I hope he does, but we'll see. He made his major league debut last year, got 33 innings already, and he had 33 Ks. K per 9 is great, and that 1 K per 9 was pretty consistent with his numbers across the minors, and he has already shown durability in his career, so that's a great sign. I believe Wesneski was the Rizzo trade, so 1-for-1, or I think it was multiple, but I think he came over in the Rizzo trade. Decent slider and decent command. Command is the number one thing I look at pitchers. A high walk rate will end any prospecting pitcher, just because if you can't keep players off or runners off base, you're going to be in trouble. So the fact that he has decent command is a good sign. 93, 94 fastball. I like that. I wish it was 2 mile an hour faster. But, we saw Shane Bieber in 2022. You could be really good with a 91, 92 fastball. I mean, even if you look at the Cubs roster right now, Kyle Hendricks, he's a guy who's been getting by at 90, maybe 90 on his best day. So fastball velocity isn't the only thing. 93, 94 is completely serviceable. After the 7 spot of Wesneski, it's kind of a mixed bag. Interesting player to me is Javier Assad. He's pitching in the World Baseball Classic right now. No rookie cards or Bowman cards, but he does have a Topps Now call-up from last season. So I think we could see Assad at some point this year. He may step up in a long relief role because he has good swing and miss potential. It'll be interesting to see how this whole starting rotation shakes out because I do think they have a lot of depth, which is something I haven't been able to say about a lot of teams I've looked at so far. So when I get to the end of this, I'm going to talk about how I think the Cubs can win more games than they're projected and sneak into that playoff spot. And it's because of this rotation depth. You very rarely have 5 starters make 30 starts. And this is a team that I'm 8 deep, 9 deep. I'm going to mention a 10th starter here, an 11th starter shortly. They have the depth to withstand injuries, which is always tough, and in baseball is almost a guarantee. And just something that, as I highlight all these players, they all have interesting parts to them. Up next would be Caleb Kilian. Kilian was a 2023 Topps rookie. He's a command first pitcher, and that is, maybe doesn't jump off the page and isn't exciting. But the issue is he walked a lot of batters in 2022. So how can you be a command first pitcher and walk a lot of batters? Well, according to Sahadav Sharma, the Cubs beat writer for The Athletic, Kilian was dealing with a knee issue that he didn't really talk about last year. And I think that is a big contributor to why he walked so many players. And if he is healthy coming into this season, we could see that command pick back up and him keep runners off base. I think he's perfectly in line with a penny stock. His cards are his parallels sell for $2 to $3. I think I picked up a black for $12 or $14, something like that. He's one to keep an eye on where if he does get some starts and just kind of sneaks up on people and you wonder how do we miss him, it's because his 2022 numbers and his number one skill set were greatly diminished. So Kilian is just that absolute deep sleeper, but one to keep an eye on. I don't know if I mentioned Ben Brown, but Ben Brown just got sent down to AA or assigned to AA, so I don't want to completely count him out, though. He came over from Philly in the David Robertson trade, and he has really improved his command. You hear me just keep hammering command. He doesn't have any cards yet, but Ben Brown is one I'll keep an eye on to potentially jump on if he does ever get, let's say, a Topps Now card where it'll be his first card. That's one where I'm going to put in an order of maybe 40 cards, try and get a parallel or something. When a player gets his first card, I sell a lot to family members. So that is just a random thing to keep an eye out for. Ben Brown, if he gets called up this year or early next, his first card could be exciting. Oh, but back to Kilian. I mentioned, it's his age 26 season. So this isn't a guy who you're going to buy for 10 and sell for 100. He's a guy you're going to buy for 4 and sell for 12. If he starts to break out, or if a card you bought for 12 might sell for 50 on the absolute best day. So don't go too crazy with Kilian, but if you wanted to add a little bit of his cards to hit your flip portfolio, you could take a shot. And in the Chicago Cubs market, it's definitely worth a try. I did not mention Kyle Hendricks very much because he's still coming back from injury. He had shoulder injury that he last year pitched through, and the reason for that is he was worried about the Cubs as a whole. He thought they were going to be in really big trouble with him missing, but Kyle Hendricks fought through it. He didn't have a good season, so if he comes back this year, it'll probably be middle of May, end of April, middle of May, I hope. He did just throw his first full go bullpen session, so that's a good sign that he's ready to ramp up and get his innings under him. But Kyle Hendricks is just that, prototypical command first pitcher who can just full hitters with all kinds of off-speed, junk pitcher, but has been doing it for a long time. He knows what he's doing, and the last remaining Cub from the 2016 World Series champions. So Hendricks, the professor as they call him, always a fun guy to watch because he is not your prototypical, 100 mile an hour. He is a very smart pitcher who knows how to get hitters out, force them to make weak contact, and just fun all around. I think that was 11 pitchers that I just mentioned. That's why I like the depth. The Cubs expected 1 through 9, and I say expected because my date that I wrote this was 3/6/23. It is now 3/11, so I'm 5 days behind, and in spring training, an injury pops up or something happens, but I could be missing someone, or this could have changed drastically, and if so, I'm sorry. Nico Hoerner, I hope he is slotted into the leadoff all season. He's a 2020 Topps rookie. He was in Series 1. A lot of us were excited about him in 2020. He was kind of a COVID darling before actual baseball was being played. That 2020 Topps Series 1 release had Yordan Alvarez, Bo Bichette, Aristides Aquino was really popular, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, and then right after all that big group was Nico Hoerner, kind of in a 1A or 2 position as far as prospects go. I'm ready for him to hit that potential that we were excited about. Not a star, but kind of a mid-star, maybe 15, 20 kind of guy. He did have a decent season last year. Here's 4.4 WAR, and what's causing that is he's good all around. 10 homers, 20 steals, 60 runs, 55 RBIs. He's on the base paths. He's a decent contact guy, and I would love to see him develop more power. The good news for him, everyday second base is probably his job. So Nico Hoerner, Dansby Swanson up the middle. Good combo. Speaking of Dansby Swanson, he's probably the number 2 hitter in this lineup. 2017 Topps rookie, if you want to jump in on Swanson. Really consistent the last 3 years, slugging and OPS all within the same range. So his breakout season last year wasn't necessarily a breakout. It was a lot of things going right that have consistently gone wrong for him. What I mean by that, maybe balls dropped more often, maybe more runners are on base. So even though Dansby Swanson had a breakout year last year, it was more statistical based than output based. He's been doing this. So I think that's kind of the reason the Cubs were in on him. If you listen to the GM, they say Dansby Swanson was their number 1 guy all along, as far as free agent shortstops go. And maybe he's telling the truth. But one thing that I do think contributes to that is he could actually stay at shortstop his whole career. If you look at Bogarts or Trey Turner, they both will play shortstop for a long time, but they both will eventually be off of shortstop as well. So I think one of the reasons they like Dansby so much is he is a true shortstop and will likely stay there. I think, he signed this, I think it was 7-year, $177 million. I think he could actually earn his contract, and I don't feel that way about most of the others. So he has Gold Glove and All-Star, 12th in MVP voting last year. He was healthy, which is always a thing. And last year he had a career high in steals. So that is interesting. It's a contract year. We see players break out or play above their numbers in a contract year. But this year with the steal rules, maybe his steals go up again. I don't know if the Cubs will want him to do that. If they're not competing this year, they don't need him to, create an injury that potentially becomes a long-term thing or anything like that. So I don't know if the Cubs will let him run, but if he does this year, we could see him have another career high in stolen bases, and that would be pretty fun to see. Third in the lineup is Ian Happ. Happ is a 2017 Topps Update rookie. 2015 Bowman Draft is his first Bowman. And honestly, I'm surprised he's still in a Cubs uniform. He's another guy like Wilson Contreras at the trade deadline last year that I thought was going to get moved, but he didn't. So we could still actually see him get dealt this year. He signed a one-year deal. If the Cubs are out of it mid-season and someone is looking for a power guy, a pinch hitter, corner outfielder, Ian Happ is a guy that could be moved. And if he's moved, it's probably to a contender. So Happ is a guy that right now we kind of know who he is, but he could have a flash in the pan type playoffs if he makes it with someone other than the Cubs. And then maybe he gets a 3 to 5 year deal in the offseason. He was the Cubs All-Star selection last year. You have to have an All-Star, but I think that was his first All-Star, and then he did win a Gold Glove last year as well. So Happ is improving slowly. I think in 18-19 we were really excited about him, expected him to be a big deal, and he hasn't quite lived up to the hype, but batting third in this lineup with Horner and Swanson in front of him, he could have a lot more base runners than he's used to. He strikes out way too much for me, but he walks a lot also, so it does contribute to a good OBP. That makes me like him a little bit. And this is his age 28 season. I predict a career high in RBI, and I'll even say average. I think he's going to have a higher average this year than he's ever have. Maybe if he hits 280, someone's really looking forward to him next season. And then he did lower his K rate, which, again, really good sign. I said he strikes out too much. It was at 28%, but if he lowers it to 23% or 20%, we could have a surprise from Ian Happ. Trey Mancini is projected to be the 4-hitter. He's probably going to be the everyday DH with some spot starts in the corner outfield spots or maybe first base. He signed a 2-year, $14 million contract with that opt-out after this year, so he's on a prove-it contract. He's another 2017 Topps rookie. That's the third one in a row. Swanson, Happ, and Mancini, all 2017. We look at Mancini as a guy who I thought was better than he is. If you look at his 2019 season, it's fantastic. He had 38 doubles, 35 homers, 291 batting average with an 899 OPS. We keep waiting for that season and those stats to come back, but that was the juiced ball era. And if you look at those stats, that would be a fantastic season in 2022. But how we know it was inflated in 2019, he received 0 MVP votes. So that made me look at last year's MVP finish and where I think that number would land him. And finishing 9th place in the 2022 AL MVP voting was Xander Bogaerts. And Xander hit 307 with 15 homers. He finished 9th. So I would love to see Mancini get back to that 2019 numbers, but I just don't think it's in there. He was propped up by Baltimore's short fences, by the juiced ball, and luck. So I'm not going to get too excited about Mancini. His prove-it contract is proof that you can be on a roster. Maybe not that you're the potential superstar that you had we saw in 2019. If he can't, I don't think he can get back to those numbers, but I think he can be a serviceable major leaguer. Age 31 season, show me 15 to 20 homers and a 320 OBP, and I'd be happy. His career OBP is 330, so 320 is doable. I would love to see him hit 340, but I just don't expect it. That career OBP is propped up by his past seasons. On the 5 spot, maybe the most interesting player on this entire roster, or at least one that everyone not in Chicago will be watching, is Cody Bellinger, another 2017 Topps Update rookie. He had a 210 batting average last year and a 265 on-base percentage. Absolutely disgusting. Coming off his MVP season just 3 years ago, you would expect, serviceable numbers. That's not even serviceable. I think he had negative WAR last year, like negative 1.4 WAR. He was actually, a negative to have on the field. He's entering his age 27 season, so we are not done with Cody Bellinger. And I think that's why he got a 1-year, $20 million deal, is because people want to see him perform. And the Cubs brought him in, and he chose the Cubs because he wanted to play every day and prove that he can do it. And I think in Chicago, the everyday center fielder is probably Cody Bellinger. I think that was one of the reasons he stayed here, and one of the reasons the Cubs brought him in on this 1-year deal is he could be a good stopgap to Pete Crow Armstrong and a nice Band-Aid to PCA. What I really like about Bellinger is that he already has a lot of things under his belt. He already has an MVP. He already has a World Series ring. And he is tweaking with his swing all the time. So I think he tweaked himself into being a non-factor in 2020 22. But if the Cubs can get him right and maybe he realizes, hey, I'm doing too much, I need to relax, he can be a serviceable major leaguer again and maybe get that long-term contract next offseason. Coming in sixth, probably Eric Hosmer. He's going to play some first base, play some DH. He's a 2011 Topps rookie. This is his age 33 season. He might be a shift benefactor. He absolutely pounds the ball into the ground. So if they don't have that third defender on the right side, he could have a lot more balls sneak through and bump his average up pretty significantly. He signed a huge deal with San Diego. I want to say it's like 8 and 210 or something ridiculous. He never even warranted that contract at the time of signing, let alone earned it while he was playing there. I think he has a short lease in Chicago. He's playing on a league minimum contract, but he didn't cost anything. So he may just be a depth guy that they don't play every day, they don't play every third day, whatever it might be, but he can pinch hit or come in if they need him to. I expect Matt Mervis to be the first baseman by the end of the season, but Hosmer's there for now, and we'll see how much he actually plays in April and May and what the Cubs do with him moving forward. Speaking of another guy on a short lease, Patrick Wisdom, he's coming in the seventh hole. He's a 2019 Topps rookie entering his age 31 season, so if you do the math there, he came into the bigs at 28, not anything to be overly excited about. He strikes out way too much to be excited about. He had 200 strikeouts, or almost 200 strikeouts, in 134 games last year. If he plays every day, he probably strikes out 220, 230 times, and that's just not sustainable. For a power-only guy in a 755 OPS, that's not going to move the needle for me. He's a fine third baseman. He could play first base. He could play all three outfield spots, but this 7-hole, this position at third base could easily be Nick Madrigal or Sergio Alcantara, so I'm not going to go too crazy with Patty Wiz. 8-hole is your catcher combo. Yan Gomes and Tucker Barnhart, both defensive first. I mentioned Sharma earlier from The Athletic. He brought up something interesting about Yan Gomes is when he goes to a new team, his number one focus when he gets there is the pitching staff, getting to learn them, getting to learn their tendencies, their pitch mixes, and what makes them effective. And when he does that, his offense kind of takes a back seat, and his career, as it's come along, I think this is his fourth team. Every second year with the team, his offense improves because he kind of has a better idea of the pitchers and can work on his offense. So what that means for him moving or going into this season, I have no idea, but it's an interesting thing to look at. Maybe his offense comes along a little more than we expect. The 9-hole for now is Christopher Morel. I say for now because I haven't mentioned Seiya Suzuki. 2023 Topps Series 1. He burst onto the scene last year, good in May and June, but then MLB pitching caught up. A lot of Ks, despite a power-speed combo that could be really interesting, but he's filler until Seiya comes back, in my opinion. Speaking of Seiya, decent power, decent speed combo. He came out really hot last year as well. In April, I think he had like 5 homers in 10 games and 5 steals or something like that. Everyone was really excited about him, and then he took a step back as well. It's fine. He's getting used to Major League pitching. You have to learn somewhere. He's a 2022 update rookie, the deep 2022 update class. Oblique injury already in spring training because he bulked up this offseason. I shouldn't say because he bulked up. I don't know if it's a contributing factor, but it does seem to be something that the two are linked, oblique injuries and bringing up, increasing your mass. Oblique injuries are tough. They expect him to miss opening day, but be back by hopefully the end of April. As long as he's fine and actually healthy when he comes back, I could see 20 homers. I think that'd be a good season. Maybe 25. If he lowers his K rate, which I expect him to as he gets more acclimated to the U.S. and MLB pitching still, he could have a really good season and be a nice, cornerstone for this Cubs roster moving forward. I talked about a lot of one-year guys: Happ, Mancini, Bellinger, Hosmer, Wisdom likely gone. So Seiya Suzuki could be that cornerstone that the Cubs are looking forward to. The Cubs bench, we have a catcher, Gomes or Barnhart, whoever isn't playing. Edwin Rios, they brought him over from the Dodgers. He's entering his age 29 season. He was a pinch hit specialist in L.A. I expect him to kind of be the same in Chicago, match up where he needs to. He still strikes out a lot, but puts the bat on the ball. Or when he puts the bat on the ball, there's a lot of contact. He's a 2020 late rookie, so he doesn't have a ton of rookies, but if you want to grab some 2022 tops, that would be the move. Zach McKinstry, another Dodger. This is the third Dodger I mentioned. He's entering his age 28 season. Utility guy who can just get the job done. He's perfect bench player. Nothing to be overly excited about as far as future starter, breakout, or anything like that, but a player who you need to round out your bench somehow. 2021 Topps rookie heritage high number if you're interested in him. Nelson Velasquez, another outfield depth guy, 2022 Bowman Chrome, and likely 2023 Topps Series 2 rookie. He hits too many ground balls. He doesn't get the ball in the air enough, but he's only 24, and I think he has a lot of room to get better. We'll see what the Cubs do with him, if they keep him in AAA and he plays every day, or they keep him on as a bench depth guy. The bullpen in Chicago is pretty sneaky, in my opinion. They have Brandon Hughes, which is their likely closer. Michael Fulmer, the eighth inning setup guy who could close if needed. Brad Boxberger's there. Julian Merriweather, Adbert Alzolay, who's a wiffle darling. There's a lot of arms in that bullpen that can get outs. Cody Hoyer and Ethan Roberts are both on the injured list, but if/when they come back, they're guys that could get outs. I kind of like this bullpen in Chicago. Hughes isn't the number one lockdown closer, but he's very serviceable in the role, and I think he'll be fine. The prospects for the Cubs are really just question marks. Did the breakdown of the 2016 World Series and 2017 team work? They sent Rizzo to the Yankees, which brought back Kevin Alcantara. Baez to the Mets, which brought back Pete Crow Armstrong. Chris Bryant to the Giants, which brought back Alexander Canario. So are these trades working? Are the Cubs developing these prospects, and what can we expect from them in 2023? First on the list is Matt Mervis, in my opinion, and I say that because I think he's knocking on the door. It sounds like the Cubs want to keep him down in AAA, but I don't understand why. Last year, across 3 leagues, he hit 36 homers, and if I'm in the front office, I just let him play. What are we doing with Eric Hosmer? What are we doing with Mancini? Could be a fine DH and spell Mervis at first if he wants, but let Matt Mervis play. He had a really good AFL, and I think he's one of those AFL darlings where people are really excited about him, but I would just like to see him get the job and play every day. MLB top 100 list, Pete Crow Armstrong is number 28. He's a 2020 Bowman draft as a Met. I just mentioned he came over in the Baez trade. He probably won't make the roster this year, but he had a good year at high A last year, and I would love to see him really compete at Double A, and maybe he makes the opening day roster in 2024. I kind of alluded to it before. Bellinger is the stopgap to PCA, in my opinion, so I want to see him have a really good 2023 and be one of those hype guys in 2024. He's a guy that his cards already sell pretty high, but I think there's room for growth. So if you're interested in Pete Crow Armstrong and you believe in this skill set, might be a good time to buy. When he obviously won't make the opening day roster, but when he gets sent down, it could be a good buying time. Kevin Alcantara is number 87 on the MLB Top 100. Good power speed combo, but I think he got assigned to high A already. He's 2 years away. If he continues to develop, we could be excited about him. Brennan Davis, who I probably have mentioned his name 3 times. Every spring training, I'm excited. Hey, Brennan Davis is the guy. Brennan Davis is the guy. He was the Cubs' number 1 prospect. He's dropped all the way to 92 on the top MLB list. He did make it to AAA in 2021, so that's what I'm saying. I was excited that he could make the majors in 2021, could maybe make the opening day roster in 2022, but didn't get the call, and now he's working back from injuries. He was hitting well in the AFL this offseason until he had another injury. So Brendan Davis is a guy who has all the skill set, but maybe by the time he makes the majors, that top prospect has worn off, and maybe we're just excited for him to be an everyday player. We'll see. Speaking of injuries, Alexander Canario for the Cubs. He had a winter league injury, and it was pretty severe. He messed up his shoulder and ankle on the same play. And we don't even know when he'll play baseball again. He's probably a month away from even fully rehabbing, so I don't know when we'll even see him in the minors. Probably if 2023 rehab goes well, we might see him in 2024, maybe. And then, again, another prospect who could make the roster this year, Miguel Amaya, is entering his age 24 season. He's a catcher. He could make an impact this year. He's a defensive first, which is what a lot of teams are trending towards when it comes to the catcher position. But he has enough skills to be an above-average catcher as far as the offensive output goes. Same thing, though. He hasn't played in a long time. Yeah, he hasn't been a starting catcher in almost 2 years. So Miguel Amaya, if he works back and has success and stays healthy in AAA, he's a guy, like I said, we could see this year. The outlook for the Cubs is, what reclamation projects work. If they get Cody Bellinger back, to his old form? Are they a contender for him to sign a long-term deal? Is that Trey Mancini contract, is it worth it? Does he, have a good season, then immediately opt out and Matt Mervis is the guy at first base? There's a lot of things that I think could go well for the Cubs and a lot of things that I think have to go well. They have to keep this rotation churning. I think Drew Smyly's a fine pitcher and can get outs. I think Justin Steele's a fine pitcher who can get outs. But if those guys aren't working, I want to see Hayden Wesneski right away. I want to see them give these young arms chances. This is a season where they could make the wild card, but like I said, with Stroman at the top of the rotation, even if they make the wild card, I expect them to get bounced right away. So give playing time to your prospects, see where they are, see what trades have worked, and then in the offseason of 2023 into 2024, make the big free agent signing or two that we thought we might see this year. The over-under in Vegas is 76.5. I will strongly take the over. I think they finish above 500. I know that's quite a jump from last season, but the Band-Aid approach with serviceable major leaguers in the rotation and throughout the infield and outfield, I think could work just fine. And my targets to buy were Wesneski and then, like I said, Pete Crow Armstrong. I think there's still opportunity. Future Hall of Famers on this team, maybe one, maybe two, and these are long shots at best. Bellinger, if he turns it back around, could eventually be a Hall of Famer. He has 2 All-Star games, a Silver Slugger, MVP, Rookie of the Year, and World Series. So he has that trophy case that we look for, and people always want to bring up as a negative for players that aren't or that don't have those accolades, but he still needs to bounce back really strong. And then Swanson is a guy who, he's just going to be on the outside looking in. There are too many really good shortstops at this time in Major League Baseball for Swanson to be considered, the best of it at his position at any point in his career. So he's good. Dansby Swanson is good, not great. Outside of those two, I don't see a projectable Hall of Famer on this team right now. So that's just something I look at, and it's interesting. All right, guys, that was the 2023 season outlook for the Cubs. Let me know what you think in the comments below. These are not getting a lot of traction on YouTube, and I think it's because it's probably a little boring to watch the talking head. So if you have made it this far, thank you. Throw me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know what I'm doing that's interesting. Let me know what I'm doing that you don't find or you don't think is working. I want to keep making these with the thought that this will be a yearly thing. So thank you again for watching, listening, however you did. Hopefully, I will see you on the next one.